Hello, my name's JPat Stevens. Uh, I've been caving for 70 years. I'll be 80 this coming Christmas. And I went in my first cave when I was 9 years old. My mother didn't know, and I didn't tell her. But from then on, I went to more caves, and ran into more people that liked caves. And eventually, I ran into a group down in the west end of Louisville, and we all got together and talked about forming a grotto, and we did. And it wasn't sanctioned until 1966, but we started in 62. And we started caving in Breckenridge County because we'd heard of a couple caves down here. One of them was Thornhill. We did a lot of caving in Thornhill and Blissets and a few more caves down here. And everybody kept talking about this cave called Big Bat, but we couldn't find it. Nobody knew where it was. So in March of 66, Angelo got a call from a fellow that had just gotten out of the armed forces and wanted to join the grotto. And while he was talking to Angelo, he mentioned Big Bat. And Angelo said, "Do you know where that is?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll take you to it." So the next Saturday, we loaded him up, brought him down here to Custer, and we started looking outside of Custer, but he couldn't find the cave. So after searching for 4 hours, we went back to the Custer store to get a bite to eat, and we ran into a group of men hanging around the late winter fire and the stove in the store. And we asked them if they knew where Big Bat was, and this one guy screamed out right away he knew where it was. His name was Guy Lyons. And so he took us right to the cave, and he said his brother owned the property, so it was okay if we went in. Well, it turned out that where the entrance is located is where three pieces of property come together. They used that for a point. But one of the pieces was on this guy's property. So we went in, and we were all young then. This is 2015. That was 1966. So we ran in the cave almost to the mountain rooms, turned around and came back out. Because one of the fellows we picked up down here, another caver named Neil Whitehead, had to leave and get home early. So we turned around and came out. And so that's when we got started. The next weekend, Bob Walker and Rich Krekel surveyed from the natural entrance back to the junction box with a lensatic compass and a tape. Later that year, Angelo talked his mother into, and Angelo's the one that found this guy named John C. Rhines that knew where the cave was. He talked his mother into buying him a Brunton compass. So then we had a Brunton and tape instead of the lensatic. And that's when we really started surveying. And that was probably late 66. Then after 10 years, up to about 76, we had about 10 miles surveyed in the cave. And Bob Walker was pushing a lead that he hadn't been in before. And it was just about to end, and he saw some tree roots. And Bob had also put together this cave radio that you can, two guys take it on the surface, two guys take it in the cave, and you can correspond with each other with Morse code and say, you got to move a little bit this way or a little bit that way. And you can locate the spot that they're in on the surface and tell how deep they are. So we immediately came to this thing in 76, 77, and we radioed it one evening, and we cut the fence. We got permission from the lady that owns it. Hazel Butler owned the property. She owned a great big piece of property. Now it's divided up into several pieces. But I think Hazel's passed away now. Anyway, we started back here on top of this hill where we cut the fence. And we asked a plumber that we knew up here on the main road, and he had a backhoe. And we asked him if he could come down here, and he said, sure, no problem. So he got home late this day, so he left the thing with these two sons. And one of them might have been 15 years old. Anyway, where I cut the fence, they drove a backhoe down this hill. And it was a little bit wet down here, and that thing started sliding. And he almost ran over the other boy. But anyway, they finally got it down here. And then about that time, the plumber showed up, and we showed him where we wanted him to dig. And it was right here. This pipe is sitting in the middle of it now, but there used to be an 8 foot more on this pipe. And the ground was coming downhill, and we took a bunch of earth from this side of it to fill this back in. Anyway, that door was 8 feet higher at the surface of the ground, and so if you were walking through the woods, there's a trap door there at your feet, and you'd say, where'd that thing come from? And we had it concrete washed. It used to have anchors on it. We had concrete washed down to where it was up, and it went down to the surface. And we got it all filled back in after the guy dug it. We wanted him to dig in over here, but his backhoe wouldn't reach from where he was. The only place he could sit was right up in there somewhere. And so he dug the hole there, and he got down to where he hit rock. And he said, I'm hitting rock. I can't dig anymore. And I said, can you lift that bucket up and put the teeth down and drop it and just keep hitting that right there? And he did, and boom, all of a sudden it cracked open, and you could feel the cold air coming out. So then he was able to pull that rock out of the way, and then we could slide down in there until we were in the cave. So we finished up with him, and he went on back home, and we finished putting this pipe in and filling this back in. It was beautiful. We had it all filled in, the concrete poured up there. It was gorgeous. You know, you're just walking through the woods, and there's a trap door. You open it up, go in. Well, about 3-4 weeks after we did that, a gigantic gully washer came up, and all that water came from behind you down here, and some of it squirted over into there and washed all that fill right down into the cave. So there was this pipe sticking up 12 feet high with all that concrete still hanging on it. And when the wind would blow, it would move just a little bit like this. It looked just like a big mushroom with all that concrete. So that's when we named it the mushroom entrance. We were going to call it the Butler entrance, but we changed it to the mushroom. So then we got up there and we knocked all the concrete off of it. And then we took some of that pipe off. And since then, since the KKC has it now, they took even more of the pipe off and put a counterweight on it, so it's a whole lot easier to get into now than it used to be. We didn't bother. We filled it back in a little bit, but we never could fill it back in all the way. There just wasn't enough stuff around here for us to do with shovels, you know. Anyway, after we got this in 76, 77, then we started resurveying again and started making the cave longer and longer. And then one day somebody said, it was Steve Gentry, said, Pat, and I tried to buy this piece of property one time before, but somebody bought it 2 weeks right before me. So, and Steve Gentry said that property's for sale again. And I said, really, who's got it? And he took me over there to this guy right up here on the hill. And he said, yeah, I'll sell you that. It was 10.3 acres, and he needed the money because his son was trying to get custody of his grandson. So he had to do a little court battle, and he needed the money. So I wound up paying $30,000 for 10.3 acres of worthless land, but it had the cave entrance on it. So anyway, the top part up there, 7 acres, I wound up selling to Judy Woosley's cousin, who lives right up here, that owns Carmen's Cave. I can't even think of his name now. But so I sold him that for $15,000, and he liked to have a fit, and that was the only good part with the grass, because he had some cows, and he liked to have a fit. He had to pay $15,000 for the 10 acres, or the 7 acres, I mean. And this is what was left, is 3.3 down here. But at least we still had it, and we had a 20-foot right-of-way up there that's in the deed to get back here. Then a few years later, a guy approached me from the Louisville Grotto named Ken Bailey, and he said they wanted to buy a cave. And he was forming the KKC then, or starting to. He was gathering members that wanted to start something. So anyway, he wound up buying it for $15,000, and so I got my $30,000 back selling the 2 pieces. And there you have it. That's how this entrance got here, and that's how the KKC wound up with it.